Good morning. This is Mirador Television, broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in the middle of Lewes, East Sussex. But we may be local, but we're not parochial, and we broadcast to the world. So welcome if you're in Patagonia, and I know that we have some viewers in Patagonia, or on the west coast of Canada, or in the deep desert of Australia, or in Nigeria. You are all very welcome this morning. And we invite you to join us for a little bit of a view of the newspaper headlines and the falling pound. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. And a few other bits and pieces along the way. And then at 10 o'clock, Stuart Delby will be along with a guest to discuss the issue of the disappearing bus station. Okay, you say that may be parochial. No, it's not, because there's an issue at stake here. The developer has not got any corporate social responsibility practices in place. At least it doesn't show them on its website. And this surely is a CSR matter, a corporate social responsibility matter. But anyway, we'll get the latest on where it is at 10 o'clock, if you care to join us then. All right, shall I start off with the papers? Of course, it's very important, I think, and. There's poor Liz is under fire this morning as the Financial Times says the Bank of England and the Treasury failed to calm market nerves over UK finances. The front pages mostly are dominated by the turmoil in the markets, which saw the pound touch an all-time low against the dollar. The FT says pledges by the Bank of England and the Treasury that they would work to bring both inflation and government debt under control failed to stop heavy sell-offs of the pound by investors. The paper quotes the chief economist of the Bank of Singapore, warning that the UK could enter a spiral usually seen in emerging markets where policymakers struggle to reassert credibility. The Eye, new mortgages blocked amid UK market turmoil. It says reports on the decision by several mortgage lenders, including Halifax, Virgin Money, and Skipton, to temporarily stop some or all new loans, and says others are expected to follow suit. The front page of the Eye features a picture of Prime Minister Liz Truss and Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng sliced by a graph showing the continual fall in the value of the pound over recent months. Dear. Not at all good news, is it? Not at all good news. No. It is not. We really must be very careful about what we're doing here. The Daily Telegraph, spooked lenders ditch new mortgages in pound chaos. It follows on with the mortgage issue, anticipation of a rise in interest rates to as much as 6% by midway through next year. The paper says, the Telegraph, such a rise would add £800 to the monthly cost of a typical mortgage. Wow. The Metro, the pound core tanks, it's play on words with the Chancellor. The pound core tanks reads the headline in the Metro. The paper says it wasn't just the dollar that the pound fell against on Monday, but also the euro, the Japanese yen, and even the Russian ruble. Woo! The Times. The bank vows to step in after a day of turmoil. Oh, dear. The Times reports on concern among Conservative ministers about the new government's economic strategy and quotes one warning that the party faces a world of pain if voters blame for soaring mortgage costs. The paper also carries the result of a YouGov poll giving Labour a 17-point lead, its biggest in more than 2 decades. Latest off-gem calls on suppliers. I missed that one. The Times reports, the Guardian, sterling crisis deepens as Truss's strategy unravels. Monday's turmoil shows the markets believe that talking tough will not be enough and that borrowing costs will need to rise sharply to reverse sterling slide. The paper also carries a preview of Sir Keir Starmer's keynote speech to the Labour conference on Tuesday, reporting that he will say Labour is now the party of the centre ground. Daily Mirror, Tories' economic disaster. Out of control, it says. The pound at record low after tax cuts. For rich budget sparks market chaos. Oh, dear. And new interest rate fears. And millions of households brace for more price hikes. The Daily Star, as usual, its headline writers are pretty damn good. Honey, I shrunk the quids. And it's got Kortang with mopping his brow with and a clown's nose on. The pound hits record low and interest rates are likely to rise. Experts queue up to attack Kwasi's A-level economics. The Daily Express, exclusive offer, join for free. How could they? How could they? Is that it was Strictly Ellie targeted by vile trolls. That's about Strictly Come Dancing. Daily Express, which is actually always a government supporter as a newspaper, is don't panic. We've got a plan to cut debt. And the Express urges its readers not to panic and says the Chancellor shrugged off yesterday's financial market jitters with a vow to lay out his plan to bring down debt. The Daily Mail, fury at the City Slickers betting against UK PLC. Speculators profit from the fall in the pound. Sterling rallies on a volatile day and now fears a rate rise and mortgage pain. So that's the Mail. They really are upset at market speculators, but then that's what market is all about, is making money. And let's not fool ourselves that it's anything else. The paper quotes senior Tories criticising traders for trying to make money out of bad news and warning against talking the pound down. There's not a hell of a lot that governments can do once the money men get going, and that's why they're always terrified of them. And that's why they take the cap off bonuses and so on. Right, okay. The Sun, love don't Lviv here anymore. Oh dear, the Sun is staying away from it as it usually does. The latest twist in the story of a Bradford man who left his partner for a Ukrainian refugee they had given a shelter to. The paper says Tony Garnett has now split up with Sofia Karkadian about that his ex, Lorna, with whom he has 2 children, has told friends she wouldn't have him back in a million years. That's a good way to end the papers this morning. So there's trouble in the camp. And we are very much expecting a rollicking day on the markets. What sort of rollicking day? Heaven only knows, because we can once the markets get going, is the most exciting thing in the world is reporting on business and markets. Forget wars and guns and bullets. It really is. It can be a very, very exciting patch to look at, and one of the things that we have going for us, I suppose, is that at the moment, if there's anything that is exercising people's minds, it's that we now have the Tories on the one hand, or the government anyway, Liz Truss's government, being very, very Tory in their approach to the monetary policy and saying, don't worry about it, stop panicking, just because you haven't had it for the last few years. And the Labour Party saying it's all right, we're the party of the middle ground now. Ha ha ha. Well, we've heard that before, haven't we? And we'll rescue you. Well, I wouldn't give tuppence for either of them, to be quite honest with you, right at this very moment. It just is not at all a good situation. Not at all a good situation. And we can expect fireworks, I think, both in Parliament and out Parliament over the next few years. I said a few years. To get us out of this is going to take a few years because, of course, what the news headlines have mentioned is that just about every other country in the world is in a similar situation to us. That everybody is in trouble, and being in trouble is not a nice thing. Particularly financially, because it impacts on people. But the world has had, since 2008, relative calm. And we've all been used to low interest rates, easy mortgages, easy cash, an easy life. And it's not all like that, I'm afraid. It's very much... what should we say? Well, now are tough times, and we better get used to it. We better get used to these tough times. Let's hold Justice Cameron a little bit, shall we? We've got a cable running under the thing at the moment, and that's making it a bit uneven. There we go. Let's just take a look at the back pages as well, because England and Germany drew 3-3 last night. So does this mean England are on the way back? And then our keeper spills the ball to let in Germany for a late leveller. So we were leading 3-2 up until the last minute. Germany had taken a 2-0 lead. Then England roared back with 3 goals in just 12 minutes through Luke Shaw, Mason Mount, and a Harry Kane penalty to take the lead. However, Pope spilled an 87th minute effort from Sergei Gnabry at the feet of Chelsea forward Kai Havertz, who tucked in from close range to equalise. Oh well, it sounds as if we did a little better last night than we have been doing. If it was an accidental thing from the goalkeeper, we'll have to forgive him eventually, won't we? Although nowadays, what on earth we're doing is the football and professional sport generally. I have no idea. It seems to be all about money now. And actually, a friend of mine, a good journalist, always said, look, what sport should be now and is in the business section. It shouldn't have a section of its own, or unless, if it does, we should only report on the amateurs and leave the rest to the business section. And he has a point. But anyway, they're still getting all excited about Qatar and human rights and so on and so forth. They just get on and play some decent football. That's what we really need, isn't it? We need some decent football. We do indeed. Let's see. Yes, let's just take our usual breather after we open up. It is now 04:48. It's going to be 08:48. Yes. It's going to be a bit chilly today, only reaching about 16, but there is no rain in sight, and we will get sunny spells. So not an unpleasant day, I think. Not an unpleasant day at all. Let's Sussex Police were appealing to information after a 10-year-old was seriously injured in. Oh dear, I've actually screwed it up, I'm afraid. Oh dear. There we go. I'm back. I'm so sorry about that. I was just trying to catch up with an item about the Sussex Police appealing for information after a 10-year-old was seriously injured. We'll try and get back to that in a few minutes or so. Yes, I was going to suggest that we actually take a breather. I need a breather. Heavens to Betsy. It is a tough day today. There is a lot going on. So let's go down to the park for a minute. All right, let's take an update look at the news, shall we? Mortgage lenders halt some deals after the pound falls. Virgin Money and Skipton, and I think Halifax has said they'll stop mortgage offers to new customers. The main thing is that the bank will not hesitate to raise interest rates. The government is gambling with the economy, says the ASDA boss. And why has the pound tumbled? I want to keep cutting taxes, says Quarteng. Tory MPs concerned at market reaction to tax cuts. And Starmer is to quote Tony Blair in a pitch for power. Millions turn to second jobs as living costs soar. Right, well, I can understand that. A murder accused reporters murder accused reported ex missing trial. Sorry, that's a funny one. Camille Ronescu is accused of murdering and mutilating estranged partner Fiona Golovic at their home in Lincolnshire, it appears. And the new King Charles's royal cipher has been revealed. The new Prince and Princess of Wales to make their first visit to the country, and a dossier suggests that a ferry deal may have been rigged. Oh dear. A bit of corruption there. An inquiry begins into airport's expansion plans. Which airport is that? Luton Airport. The expansion plans for it. So they're starting an inquiry to see what people think, because it's bound to chew up some greenery, isn't it? So that's what is happening on the rest of the country. Let's see. Sky world leaders gather in Japan for Shinzo Abe's state funeral amid protests over the event. He was assassinated, of course, while the country's current prime minister says Mr. Abe's contribution to Japan and this legacy justify a state funeral. The protesters point to its cost and Mr. Abe's policies, which they say have widened economic disparities. See, everybody's had it. But nonetheless, leaders from across the world have gathered for the state funeral. More than 4,300 people attended the event. Thousands of armed police were posted around the capital. It's all happening everywhere. It is all happening all over the place. And what are we doing here? Well, we're trying to just give you a snapshot of the news. We are not a all news station. We always start the day by looking at the front pages. But this morning, they are so much of a downer that we thought we'd better just to take a look and see what we've got going. But what else have we got? Well, let's see. Well, let's give you a little run into what Mirador is all about. Yes, you. Oh, we're still here. Still typing. She is. Now, there she is in the background. Jane is back. Oh, that's made my day. Jane is just wonderful. Whenever I get in, she just looks after me. She lays everything out. She gives me my coffee and she gives me a hug. And it's all right, hubby. It's a kiss, but it's a nice bus on the cheek. And she's come back. Where were you on holiday, darling? Mauritius. Oh, she was in Mauritius, yeah. Place I've always wanted to go to because apparently it's as corrupt as all hell. But anyway, she's looking bright and perky. But as she says, coming back to the cold. Oh, yeah, it's only 16 degrees out there this morning. But welcome back. And I'm sure that all your fans, all the people that come in here just to see you, will be in today, pouring in through the front door.
Oh, I'm sure they will. They'll be nobody then.
Not at all. Oh, the popular Jane, just great. Fantastic. Right. So where are we? We keep interrupting our programs, but that's what this is all about. That's why we're here, because people wander in and out, and we are not a fixed regiment television station. So what you have to do is you have to tap in and tap out quite frequently to see what we're on about. And who knows who might be what. Right. Let's just pause for a moment, because those people who are not familiar with Lewis, and why should you be if you don't live here? And those people who are recently moved here, and there are an awful lot of them, may wonder why that helmet is a center of that little video piece showing the helmet in various parts of the town, in its parks, on its streets, in its shops, outside its hotels. And the fact is that helmet is whom we have adopted as our logo, and who sits in the Priory Park as a reminder of the Battle of Lewis at 1264, and who we have named Sir Genry. And he is a marker for that battle that I mentioned, the Battle of Lewis, which is accredited historically of where English democracy began to flicker. And indeed, if English democracy began to flicker there, then it means that that's where democracy, wherever it takes place in the world, with the possible exception of the Athenians, that's where it started for almost every country that now enjoys some form of democratic government. Interesting, isn't it? What you'll say? What about Magna Carta? Magna Carta was 50 years before. And many people point to Magna Carta as being the first time that the king shared any sort of power or responsibility. Well, he didn't. He reneged on it. Although it was down on paper, it was never implemented properly. And it was after the Battle of Lewis in 1264, when Simon de Montfort defeated Henry III, that the first Parliament, as such, was formed in Westminster. Not a Parliament as we would know it today, but it was a start. And the king had to share some powers. Morning, Sally. And had to share some powers with the king. And there was a form of Parliament in which the barons took seats as of 1264. So there you are. That is what that helmet is about, and that is who Sir Genry is. He represents, he's a medieval knight's helmet. He stands about 7 feet tall in the park, and if you go for nothing else, not to cast an eye over the ruins of the priory, which was they started to build the priory in 1080. Some people say 1079. It's 1080. And Granada, sorry. Anyway, the wife of Sir William de Warenne, who was a Lord of Lewis, was a very religious lady, and she started building a Cluniac priory, or she was responsible for getting it started, much against the will of William the Conqueror, King William I. And but she by force of will managed to get it going, and it wasn't. It stood there for almost 500 years until 1540 somewhat, when that Vandal king Henry VIII, the dissolution of the monasteries, had it pulled down. But still, the foundations are there, testament to how they built things so solidly in medieval times. In fact, before medieval times, in early Norman times in this country. So that's what that is all about. And we couldn't have a more fitting testimony for what we enjoy today in terms of a democracy. But it is, money is power. And one of the big stories yesterday in the papers was that PayPal have decided that there are some people they don't like, and so they decided that they denied them the opportunity to use their system for their financial transactions. But when big business starts to do that, democracy is under threat. So let us invoke the spirit of 1284 against these people. 1284, 1264. The spirit of 1264. And Sir Henry leads the way. But it was Simon de Montfort who led the successful barons in their fight against the forces of Henry III. And they were outnumbered something like 5-1. But they still won the day and were able to, actually, they took the king captive for a little while. And there was de facto, Simon de Montfort was top man, king for a day. So that's what that is all about. And indeed, one of the things that we have today is a democratic system which has been under some stress and strain. And there are those in our midst who quite openly believe that they should, by divine right, be able to take control of this country and other countries. And if you want to see living proof of that, it's exactly what Vladimir Putin is doing right now, is deciding for others what freedoms they should enjoy. And it is not right. It is not proper in any country. It's certainly not proper and right in this one. So, remember, Sir Henry, Knight of Priory Park in Lewes, defender of democracy, along with other medieval knights and the barons who fought alongside Simon de Montfort against Henry III. Worth remembering, particularly when we're under such stress and strain as this government is having launched an ambitious economic program to get us out of muck and mire. And muck and mire, I may say, that other countries, and most other countries, are in, to get us out of that muck and mire. And they are doing what I consider to be a very bold initiative. Is it going to work? I don't know. But I do, if they want an approval rating, I approve the fact that they did something bold and straightforward and daring, because those people that tinker with things, even President Biden said he hated this dribble down policies, economic policies, where you tamper here and you put a sticking plaster on there in the hope that things will turn around in the future. So if this goes tits up, well, it goes tits up. And it wasn't for the want of trying. I'm not a great Liz Truss fan, don't misunderstand. But I sure as hell don't like the idea that Starmer is going to come in and he's now the centre party. And what he said was that almost immediately they would raise taxes and they would increase public spending. Well, you can increase public spending an awful lot. And just by putting money into services doesn't actually necessarily improve them. So we are caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, I'm afraid. So before you actually dump on the Conservatives or the present government, I should keep saying Conservatives, even the Conservative Party has got its dissidents now, people who don't particularly care for what the government is doing. And they are very vocal indeed. Right, okay. Well, England won. No, sorry, they drew 3-3 last night in quite a thriller. Apparently, it seemed to be, and so we look forward to. Let's see, it's 9:08 on the morning of the 27th of September, 2022, and that morning has got much to commend it. But Stuart Dolby will be in the studio at around 10 o'clock with a guest who is very vocal about what's happening with our own bus station here. And I must say that I think that the whole thing is being badly approached, both by the so-called developer, who has shown, despite their website saying they work with the local community and how great they are and how sensitive they are, well, they're not. And they have no corporate social responsibility plan in place. I don't know that it's absolutely 100% legal to have it locally or nationally, but nonetheless, is nowadays any company worth its salt has got CSR if it is not greenwashing. And greenwashing is saying how much you admire the environment, how much you worry about social structures and so on, and then doing exactly the opposite. And it seems that this lot are doing exactly the opposite. No CSR at all, none whatsoever. Let's see what else we might have here. In fact, I think what we may well do is we may, oh dear, there's nothing in there. We may well go to our documentary series, because we started off yesterday telling you that we were going to give you the guff on the race course, and we didn't. We got it wrong. But today, what we can do is we can go back to the bloody past of a tiny town on the episode 2, which gives us some idea of the traumas that this town has undergone. And the bloody past of a tiny town, that comes from the fact that more blood has been spilled on this high street outside the White Hart Hotel than any other town anywhere in the United Kingdom. So let's just take a little peek anyway, until such time as we get our act together with other things. Here we go.
Lovely scene, isn't it? Beautiful green grass, blackberry bushes surrounding the lawn. Peaceful. The chaps, gliding a bowling ball across the cropped turf. Couldn't be more pleasant. But this bowling green was originally the tilting ground for the castle. A bit like the local football club, Norman knights turned up regularly to practice cutting off ears, piercing armour with pike or sword. Or even more dramatically, they charged at one another with pointed lances, determined to knock an opponent to the ground, ready to perform the coup de grace, that last fatal plunge of the sword in the unguarded bit of flesh, the throat. Ugh, makes me feel quite faint. But the Knights of 1100 had to be honed to military perfection. Not only was there the odd disgruntled Saxon around, but even his own side could give the king a rough time. And indeed they did. But before we go to another bloody incident on the Lewes High Street, let's stay with the tilting ground for a moment. In the 1700s, the soldiers, who had wielded their swords with such skill, discovered guns and started shooting one another. That more or less ended the fun of charging at one another with horses. And so this bit of real estate was up for grabs, and the local crown bowlers seized the opportunity in 1751 and turned tilting into bowling. But this is Lewis, remember. Nothing is ever what it seems. The horses had ploughed up the ground a bit, so the surface wasn't even. You can see the bumps and ridges across the green. So the type of bowls played on this green was different to any played through the British Isles. And 500 years later, it still is.
It goes way back to medieval times. But as far as we're concerned here, we've been playing here since 1753, and there is some evidence to suggest that in the mid-1600s there was bowls played here. And we're reputed to be the oldest society, sporting society in the world. Very unique. I mean, unique in many respects. I mean, firstly, the woods are unique in that most of them over 100 years old. They're lignum vitae, which is very, very hard wood, and that's the reason, of course, they've survived as long as they have. The jack is biased, which is very unusual, and the green is undulating, very undulating. There's not another green anywhere in this country so far as we know, and it makes for a very fascinating but unique game, one that we can't play any other club because there aren't any that play like this. We have a membership of 50 only or 55 now, because that's all the woods we have. They're handed down from person to person. We have a championship game in the summer because we have a competition throughout the year, which is within the club. And I think the winner of that is not only our own champion, but we can consider he's world champion. As long as we can retain the green, and I think we can retain the green, as long as we can do that, there's no reason why this society shouldn't continue ad infinitum almost. It's a great Lewis establishment.
So bowling in Lewis is completely unique. And very difficult. But back to blood and guts. In the last episode, I spoke of a battle between the king and some of his barons. The king, Henry III, held the castle. Now, as you can see, the castle pokes up into the sky quite a bit. The Motter is a man-made hill. And as you can see, a few hours of overtime were put in to build this pile of dirt. From the top, you can see in every direction for miles. Almost impossible to creep up without being noticed. And there was a moat to cross as well. But it's called Castle Ditch Lane, the name reflecting its purpose all those years ago. The king, rather unsportingly, had more men on his side than the barons. But it seems he fell asleep at the switch, and on that meadow over there, Simon de Montfort drew up his troops and joined battle. Fighting was fierce. After all, they'd all been on their own tilting greens, preparing for such a showdown as this. The battle was short and sharp, and the barons put the royal troops to flight. And they showed no mercy. The priory had been used as a staging post by the king's men, and they now took refuge there. It's little wonder that tilting grounds became bowling greens, because despite all that training, the king's men panicked. Screams of terror from both monks and soldiers echoed around the priory. As burning arrows thudded into thatched roofs, setting the priory buildings afire, fighting spilled over to here, our beloved but bloody High Street. Soldiers were either massacred or crushed to death as they tried to get across the bridge over the River Ouse. For the king, it was a complete disaster.
De Montfort, he split his armies up on the hills behind us in the chalk downs. He split his army into three forward not flanks, but bunches of men, you know, groups. And they would have been around 1,500 people in them. So a lot of people. So he had 1,500 people. Then he kept men back for himself. So his left flank went off to Barkham and met Prince Edward, and they went off to Barkham. Prince Edward, being a hothead and chasing them all the way up to Barkham, away from the town, was one of the reasons the king's men lost. Because and they were mounted knights. And then the other two sets came into the town and were met by the king's army and Richard of Alamaine's army on sort of the hills around us, really, because where we are now would have been outside the town.
And it was a pretty bloody war.
It was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful. It's hard to imagine. Lewes is a little place, and on the hills around Lewes, where most of the fighting was, you know, there were tens of thousands of people trying to kill each other. And it was hand-to-hand close combat. And you didn't often die of wounds on the battlefield immediately. You were usually whacked with a broadsword and you would die of internal bleeding, or you would, have limbs severed and die slow death, or you would die death from infection, etc.
So there you go. Not quite one man, one vote, but some slight recognition that the divine right of kings isn't exactly what the Almighty had in mind.
A spark of democracy was ignited, and it happened in Lewes.
As usual, this is thirsty work, and I need to take a break. In fact, have a tipple, or perhaps go to the loos. Don't leave me, there's more blood and gore to come. Oh, Lewes, what a place!
Lewes increased in importance as the Norman occupation took hold. Not that it wasn't important before that. In Saxon times, the town had 2 mints.
And in case my pronunciation confuses you,
Those are places where coins were made, not a sweet that is eaten to try to disguise what you've been drinking. The now much larger cathedral town of Chichester only had 1 mint, which not only indicated the importance of Lewes, but started a sort of battle of popularity between the two places. The struggle for the rights to hold assizes, for example, created a tug of war that saw Chichester hold trials for a while, only for Lewes to get them back. Lewes won. The Crown Court and Lewes Assizes are still located in the modern town, and they ain't going nowhere. Mighty though the Norman castle was, it was dwarfed by the Cluniac Priory, just across this small valley. William de Warenne, who actually fought at the Battle of Hastings, was granted Lewes, along with lots of other goodies, as the spoils of war. His wife Gundrada, a religious lady, asked for and got a sponsorship to establish the priory, just 20 years after England was conquered. Henry VIII's chief vassal, Thomas Cromwell, pulled it down in 1547. Doing the bidding of the king who had fallen out with Rome over his love life. The work of the 11th century first-class masons, and some of these buildings have lasted to this day. Look at that, almost 1,000 years old. It wasn't just Henry and Thomas who were vandals. The good burghers of Lewes did their part over successive centuries, digging up the grounds and using the stones to build their garden sheds. By the time it was destroyed, the priory dominated the Lewes skyline. Its great church was immense, and the whole complex had its own hospital, dormitories, dining hall, and a wharf. Boats sailed up to the priory to carry and fetch goods.
How times change. This river, the Winterbourne, carried ships and barges up to the docks in the priory. Nowadays, it would barely carry a paper boat.
The priory was vitally important to the local economy, bringing in goods and attracting important visitors.
The ship would have actually come very near to the edge of where the tennis courts are. That's where, because you've got the Cockshoot river or stream which fed into the Ouse, and then yes, there would have been a wharf here from which they unloaded all the stones that they used to build the priory. Because what we see now is a lot of the infill. It's like the cavity walling of the priory. The outside, the dress stone, which is now used in places like Southover Grange, came from Carr on the Isle of Wight or from Caen, so it all had to be imported. It was a significant part of the town. It started small with only 4 monks, but over the course of about 400 or 500 years, the numbers swelled. The maximum number we had was probably about 100 monks. But the church, the big church that was built in the 14th century, was bigger than Chichester Cathedral. It was massive. It would have dominated the skyline in Lewes, so it was incredibly important. And it looked both ways. It looked inland because Lewes was the mother priory for other Cluniac monasteries in the UK, and it also looked towards Europe with its mother house in Cluny. We do a lot of education work with a whole range from tiny children up to adults to get them interested in different aspects of the priory. And the trustees of Lewes Priory Trust are very keen that it's always open and free access, and it's a beautiful place that everybody can come to. They can learn about the history, they can sit in our herb garden and contemplate, and we've just started a new kitchen garden which will grow vegetables, and again this is for the community to get involved in. So it's very we've just started a new kitchen garden.
Right, it's an interesting background to Lewes and the history of it, but who's joined us, but the man himself, Stuart Dolby, who is in to do one of his conversations with Stuart at 10 o'clock, but since he's here early, I've taken the opportunity to ask him to sit down and talk to me about what's happening in the financial markets, because he is an ex-Financial Times journalist, and his assessment of what's going on will be much more perceptive than mine. Oh, it's frightened him so much he's left.
No, I haven't. It just so happens.
It just so happens he's got a copy of the FT.
Happens to be here,
Right.
so I can, as an alumnus, I'm there to actually Bank of England Treasury fail. Exactly.
Right.
While the Americans have brought about a very, very strong dollar, it's because
All right, now sit down before you explain, because otherwise they won't hear you clearly from the microphone.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Here we
It is no that the Bank of England has failed really to actually do anything about inflation, because they're only putting up the interest. The only tool that any country or company has got against inflation is interest rates. Interest rates makes things more expensive. Interest rate makes people Interest rates makes people have more money, more expense rather, to actually buy things and so forth and so on. And therefore, that is the only tool we have to curb inflation. And they haven't done it, whereas the States has put it up by 7% or something like this, We've been creeping along at 0.25% for the past 18 months. But obviously, you're going to have inflation if nothing's curbing it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bank of England and Treasury failed to calm market nerves over the UK finances.
Am I right in saying that our central bank, the Bank of England, is actually independent of the government?
Yes, it is. That was Gordon Brown's, another one of his mistakes.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought it should be clear that it's the Bank of England that you're talking about. Yeah. Okay, where you go.
Right. Would you want me to talk about energy as well?
Well, yeah, but we can continue to explain. Remember that some of the intimacies and intricacies that we understand, not everybody out there understands. To them, inflation is my God. And many of them haven't even lived through any sort of inflation. So perhaps continue with the role of the bank and what it's done and what it hasn't done.
Well, as I just said, the Bank of England controls interest rates. Okay?
Yeah.
And interest rates are basically the only tool that the government has to actually bring inflation under control. Because what it does is it makes interest rates going up, makes everything more expensive. Like interest rates have now smashed the regime of cheap mortgages. I mean, for 30 years almost now, we've had very cheap mortgages because just interest rates are so low. And now, young people will not be able to get on the mortgage ladder, will not be able to get payable mortgages. So it goes on and on.
Well, surely this exacerbates the situation, because it seems to me that I've been hearing criticisms that young people can't get onto the property ladder anyway.
Well, they can't if the cost of the property has gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Getting mortgages is the problem now. I mean, I was looking for a mortgage for my stepdaughter about the last year, and they were still getting 0.1% mortgages. Well, that's unheard of, really. Now, I mean, don't forget, back in the day, mortgage rates went up to about 15%. God save us all. They could not. It's very, very difficult. And the same as interest rates on all kinds of things, isn't it?
Right. So, what is your prognosis at the moment? I mean, the pound has plummeted. The bank is going to have to put up interest rates. What is it going to put them up to?
Well, that's a very $64,000 question, isn't it? I mean, if it goes up to, don't forget, do you remember in Black Wednesday, whenever it was, with John Major?
Right.
They stuck it up to 15%. That really is very, very expensive for just anybody want to get a mortgage or want to get anything, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would add to our cost of living too,
That's
because
right,
that would affect businesses and so on. Yeah. Yeah. What's it standing at the moment, Stuart?
I wouldn't be sure, actually. I think it's 1 point something or other. I'm not sure.
And you're saying that the Americans have put it up 7 points?
I think it's about that, yeah.
Mm.
Well, let's put it this way, then. The dollar is not, after the pound, has an early morning low of dollars 1.135. They seem to be measuring it in dollars now rather than pounds.
Right.
So that is $1, essentially. Well, well, you're not going to get far on that, are you?
No.
Not able to change interest rates. The BEE issued a statement saying it would not hesitate to change interest rates to keep inflation under control. But its announcement that it would not conduct a full assessment of the government's new debt-fueled economic policy until its next scheduled meeting in November caused fresh what? Yes. Well, this is another point, you see. They're talking about reducing taxes, and they're going to go deeply into debt, right? And they're going to pay that off. They're going to pay that off over time using debt. Well, that's a bit bonkers, isn't it? When you think about it, that debt will cost them a fortune.
Yeah.
They're not only going to pay back, not pay back what they've spent. They're going to spend plus 30%. Say, it's like having a credit card, really, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. I mean, that is the iniquitous part of the banks that I've never understood why government allow it. But still, there we go. The mysteries of government bank relationships, isn't it?
Here you go. Mortgage lenders retreat as volatility raises fears of house prices correction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, Halifax and two more key lenders will not take on new customers for mortgages at the moment under the present market circumstance.
Well, because it makes it expensive for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they're giving a mortgage where it's only about 1%, it doesn't cost Halifax very much, does it?
No, quite. Right. Okay. Now, you've got a guest coming in, and tell us who the guest is and what your topic of conversation is today.
Well, James Herbert met my wife. This is quite parochial, really. Met my wife at the bus stop, and he was actually campaigning against the situation with the bus stop. We all know what's happened. It's been closed down, but it seems that the company or the developers rather, who want to develop it, Warrior, I think they're called, have not got planning permission. Now, he is a Green town councillor,
right?
Okay, and they are very, very active with things. Well, you know, Jacqueline is a town councillor, and then there's Dennis and so on and so forth. So he's trying to do his bit by sort of getting people on it. And my wife Leslie said, well, I don't know too much about it, but my husband does have this program on the television. Perhaps you could go and have a chat with him. And we phoned one another up, and he said, yeah, he'd be happy to come and do it. So we'll start off with the bus stop, and I'll find out something about him.
Right, and that's at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let's then turn to your energy matters, because in all the kerfuffle, of course, we lose sight of the very latest news on energy. Where do we stand, Stuart?
Not very well. I mean, well, let's go back. Before the Queen's thing came up, Liz Truss said that she was going to actually do something about the energy cap. Okay? At the moment, the energy cap sits, well, now, until next week, the energy cap stood at 971 for every home. Okay, 971. Now, the thing is that the Ofgem sets the energy cap twice, was setting the energy cap twice a year, 1st of October and the 1st of April. That meant that the 1st of April next year, no, 1st of April it would go up to 3,000, no, 1st of October it would go up to 3,500. But all of a sudden, they said, we're not going to set the energy cap at twice a year. We're going to set it at 4 times a year. Okay?
Right.
So that means that it's going to go up every 3 months, not every 6 months.
Did we ever find out why they decided to
No,
go for?
that's the missing bit in the puzzle. They don't because I suppose they keep going on that the companies. Look, energy is controlled, and supply is controlled by a cartel of 6 big companies, okay? Right. And they are very naughty people. They're supposed to get all this money through their system. And really, they spend an awful lot of money giving themselves fat wages and giving a lot of money to their shareholders. And that really does impact on the price of energy. And so anyway, January, the way things stand at the moment, on January, the cap will go up to 4,200. Okay? Then one of the government think tanks, I think it's called Chelsea Consultants, no, Cornwall Consultants, said by the end of 2023, the energy cap is going to be 600,000. 6,000. No, not 600, 6,000, right? Mm-hmm. 6,000, which means each house will have an energy bill of 500 quid a year. Well, they can't afford that. You can't afford a tariff of 500 quid, can you?
No.
So she's now said that, right, what we're going to do is reduce the energy cap and freeze it for 2 years at a decent price. That meant that doing that, according to some of the advisors, that would cost £90 billion to do. Then there's also, that's for 2 years, okay? And that cost 90 billion pounds. She's now included businesses into the mix because it's only been domestics that have received relief. Now it's businesses as well. And that's been calculated that would be 40 to 60 billion pounds to give money to all the pubs and all the businesses and so on. So you're talking about 150 billion pounds to actually keep the energy prices down. And that is an awful lot of money. And who's going to find it? Yes, you and me. And that means there's going to be a huge, not just huge poverty, but destitution. You've heard about people dying and people freezing to death and all that kind of thing. So that's the situation we're in. That there's sort of, because as the gas price keeps going up, largely because of Putin, he holds back his supply so that the price goes up. For example, February 2021, it was 38p a therm. Now it's about £5 more, nearly £6 a therm. And that means it's very priced. So they got the cartel say, well, we can't cope on this. We need it to come down and so forth and so on. So they're actually, asking for more and the rest of it. So that's where we are. But now some people are saying, well, it's not only actually fixing the energy cap or what's it. We want to become totally independent of gas or Putin or the rest of it. So therefore, we also have nuclear and fracking has been mentioned, and exploit what's left of the gas and oil in the North Sea. Well, when you look at all these, I don't know if you know about fracking. Few people do understand it fully. Fracking has been around for at least 40 years. It's actually splintering the rock in a particular way so that the shale rocks actually emit a larger amount of gas or oil, right? The problem is that people have got it into their mind that fracking leads to earthquakes and that their houses are going to disappear underground. And secondly, that fracking is going to affect the water table. Well, the problem was with that Dick Cheney in America made the fracking exempt from the Clean Water Act. So that meant every sort of driller could actually push down a drill which wasn't properly cased. So the water got into the water table. That's in Pennsylvania. And one of the taps was on fire. And therefore said, we've got fracking, no fracking here, no fracking here. In fact, once you've properly cased it, it works quite well. But the real problem with fracking is that it's the question, well, Quadrilla was allowed in 2019 to actually frack, and there were tremors, and people thought their houses were going to go down. And the fact of the matter is, really, they want to bring back fracking. But the problem is, you might notice that this trust says we are going to bring back taxes, provided the local communities will agree. Now that is the key phrase, you see, because when fracking was allowed, essentially the problem is one of title. In America, the people who owns the top also owns underneath. Here, the Queen owns the underneath. That means the councils, the local councils, and they simply won't have it. They do not want all this equipment coming through their lovely country lanes. They do not want all this lovely equipment, so forth, all these pieces of, jacking up in a beautiful site, so forth. So my own feeling is that fracking won't happen.
Right. Are there areas of the country where you would have more fracking than others?
Well, no, there are only two places really. Well, there's the Bowland Shale in the north, which goes right across from Lancashire to Yorkshire and goes down to the Midlands slightly. Then there's the Weald Basin, which is through us, where they wanted to frack, but you've got to understand, it's different fracking from oil. It's from gas.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when Caroline Lucas was protesting against Barkham, where it was being fracked. In fact, it wasn't, as a matter of fact, because it was naturally fracked. And she had a banner saying, "No fracking for gas here." And I said, "Caroline, actually, it's an oil well." So very simple. She didn't like that.
Politicians are never wrong. Did you ever notice?
But then you get to, all of a sudden, nuclear is the flavour of the day, isn't it?
Yes, it seems to be, doesn't it? What's your view on nuclear?
Well, I'm against it, having been down to Gorleben mines and Asse mines in Germany and seeing how unsafe they are. I mean, there's nobody's ever found a final resting place for nuclear waste. And they got so spooked out, they sent some over here to Sellafield for treatment. And I think that's still going on after about 10 years. But it's not really so much, well, it is so much about Chernobyl and people dying. But the thing about nuclear plant is that it's not carbon emitting. But on the same hand, it's not renewable either, because it's dependent on uranium. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they're now saying, no, that doesn't matter, we'll get some more. And what we're going to do is actually have more nuclear plants. Boris finally came out of his box on that one and said yes. And what happened was, when George Osborne and Cameron were in charge, the Chinese were bribed by George Osborne to build, to invest in the Hinkley Point project, which was 24 billion. I thought it first went down to 18 billion, and the Chinese paid 6 billion to be involved. Yeah,
Right.
and what happened then was that the Chinese, George Osborne said to the Chinese, "Would you actually build some more nuclear plants in the UK?" And the Chinese said, under conditions, you let us do 3 to our own specification. One was Raglan-on-Sea, the other one was Sizewell-Sea, and the other one was Sellafield. And of course, when the American State Department got news of this, by that time, Theresa May was the Prime Minister. And she went over there, and by the time that the State Department got news of this Chinese, Theresa May got the most amazing bollocking, because she said, you can't put these Chinese things on British soil. They could actually nuke us. and that's the way it goes on. And now there's going to be another 8 at least, apparently. Well, the Sizewell B we know about, and Raglan-on-Sea we know about.
Right.
And then I think Westinghouse is going to do another 5 around the country. Now the thing about them is, they're incredibly expensive. It's going to cost 20 to 30 billion to do Sizewell C. And secondly, they are not entirely reliable. The EPRs which EDF uses for Hinkley Point is a European pressurized water reactor. That suddenly goes wonky occasionally sometimes. So anyway, it's.
And are we going to fall out with our allies if we build these things?
Which allies are those?
Well, is the Americas particularly, if everybody's concerned that the Chinese will get their fingers into it and
well, yeah, well, of course,
up.
yeah, but I mean, the 8 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and the rest of it has all been wiped off, as a danger. I don't think these things are going to produce nuclear bombs or anything like that. But then again, Hinkley Point has taken 10 years overdue. So it's taken a long time to build, and a long time and a very expensive thing. So, are we going to have an energy supply for?
It's going to take 10 or more years
to get it going.
Yeah.
So there's that. Then there's fracking. Then you get the North Sea. The governments, including Keir Starmer, seems to think that there's an abundant amount of oil and gas left in the North Sea. But in fact, oil, there's 1.5 billion barrels. That's not a lot when you compare it with the reserves in Saudi Arabia and America.
Right.
It's not a great deal. And then when it comes to gas, they're very secretive because they talk in terms of barrels of oil equivalent. That can be gas, but it can also be something else. So anyway, when I think it was Greg Clark, who was the president at the time, he said that, you know, we can use the 40% of gas which is in the North Sea. And I said, that doesn't make any sense to me. And first of all, I had a poke around, and it turns out when they say 40%, that includes the East Irish seaboard, right?
Right.
East Irish Sea. So I reckon at best, I thought at best, and then it was be about 30%. Other people tell me, say, no, I think it could be less than that. Because when you strip out the other, what is else borough, you know, it's BOEs, or, you know, it's barrels of oil equivalent. Right. Well, there's other things like not just gas, there's other things like other kinds of forms of energy which we talked about.
Right.
So I think all these things about we are going to become self-dependent and we are going to export our gas is a bit of a myth, I reckon.
What's that squeaking?
Squeaking?
Something beeping.
Yeah.
Beeping.
Squeaking.
Beeping.
Is it beeping from here?
There's a squeaking over there.
Is it a beeping?
You can't hear that?
No.
Oh.
Oh, our Stuart has got something going. No, it's not him. Well, I'll be damned. I have no idea what it might be.
You can't.
It's mice, it's rats.
No, it's really high pitch.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And it's coming from here.
It's coming from you guys.
Oh, goodness gracious me. Well, I have no idea. What I will do is I will shut this off and let's see if that alters the situation. I can't imagine why not, why it should be, but we'll have to accept the fact that it could easily be. No, I can't hear it. Can you? No. Dog whistle.
Before then, no.
Dog whistle. Right now, Stuart, let me ask you because nobody's going to tie you to this. But if you, the Energy Secretary, what would you be advocating as some form of solution of our present crisis?
Shoot Putin.
Shoot what?
Putin.
Oh, Putin. Shoot Putin.
That'll solve it. That will sort it.
Yeah, okay. Well, let me ask you this, because there is now serious information coming out of Moscow that there is unrest amongst some of his colleagues and that there may be an in-house coup take place.
I've always thought that would be the case. You know, there's a mafiosi, then there's a mafiosi, and there's one very tight one apparently around Putin. Now, once they sort of get hurt, or that's when they're going to turn on Putin.
Right.
I've always think that's the way he's going to go. We're not talking about all the mafiosi who've got the houses in Holland Park or they've got the houses in Knightsbridge. They're a mafiosi apart, but he has got his own little mafiosi, which I think has got lots of air marshals and lots of generals on it, haven't they?
Yes. If in fact that little cadre is overthrown, I've lost track of who might take over, and for us to think the Liberals might is best wishful thinking for Russia, because might is right in Moscow, as you know. So, would you think that an overthrow of Putin is a good thing or a bad thing, or what's going to happen if it should happen?
Well, I think it's very good to throw any dictator over, like Trump. Oh, we've got to hear him into it, isn't they?
Yeah.
He's trying to make a comeback.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
But he's only an applicant member of the human race, Trump. I mean, for God's sake, got to make allowances for these people.
Yeah. But I mean, do you see, I mean, it's easy to get rid of one person and then find that what you wished for isn't all that you've got.
No. The successors are always given a bit of a time. It was when they got rid of Khrushchev, wasn't it? How long lived Brezhnev and the other one?
Right.
Went on for years and years, didn't they?
Yes, it
Who
did.
was the other one? Brezhnev and Gorbachev? No,
no,
much
no,
later.
no. Gorbachev was later.
Yeah.
Yeltsin was
he was later.
right.
Brezhnev and
Hi, good morning.
I know.
come in.
Right, well, we'll end that speculation. What we'll do is we'll go to a little something while we settle your guess.
Yeah.
Okay, get him in quickly.
Yeah. Okay, now I'll tell you what I'm going to do is get myself a cushion.
You come here.
Yeah.
He goes there.
Yeah.
And I will pull something up so that I can.
Hello. I'm James.
Nice, I'm Stuart. Hello. Now, if we're quite shrewd, we need to get some cushions for these bloody chairs.
Some what? Some
Cushions, yes.
So I've got been given trinkets and stuff from I drop my children off the streets.
Could you go there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No, you
Yeah.
tell me what you want me to do.
Yeah.
And I will...
Okay, well, Stuart will be interviewing you.
So
I'm
gonna
just
share
standing
this
by to do the. Hang on a minute. I can hear every word we say.
No, I can't sit on that one.
Do you want to sit on this
Okay.
one?
No, I'll pull another one up.
Careful what you say. All right.
Right, you pull your one up. That'll do it, won't it?
Here we are back and readjusting the studio a little bit. If you can pull in fairly quickly, please, Stuart.
Well, can I have that?
Yeah, yes. No, I brought this one for me, but you can have this if you wish.
How about we have that one behind?
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Musical chairs, everybody.
Yeah, right.
This is what happens when you have live television like this. Right.
Right. Good morning, James. You're James Herbert,
Yes.
and I'm Stuart Dorpy, and I live in Lewes, and I am as you probably know, I'm a journalist and author, and my website is called greenbarrel.com, and it's about investment in renewable energy companies. And to my real shock, well, not shock, but I've been doing this for years, and I've kept saying that we can't meet the energy mix because of the dire lack of investment in renewable energy. And that means that we've got a gas bridge is inevitable, but we can talk about that afterwards. Let's go to the immediate issue.
Yeah.
You met my wife at the bus stop, I think, and we were talking about this, and she said, well, I don't know so much about it, but my husband Stuart does, and would you be happy to sort of come on television and just tell us about it? So first of all, are you of Lewes? Were you born here? Or,
No, I've lived in Lewes about a decade, and moved across from Brighton, had young children, wanted to get out of the city. I didn't really want to move in. My ex-partner wanted to move in, but since living here. I fell in love with the place. Yeah,
that's what happened to me. An age ago. Yeah.
You end up not wanting to leave.
No, I was one of the first undergraduates at Sussex University
Right.
in the 60s, when it was terribly good to be alive, as you might know. No, 60, 64, 67. And in my final year, I thought I'd lived a life. My tutor said to me, "I think you're going to be a first. Not that you're going to get a first, you'll be the first not to get anything," because this was a new university and everybody got one. And so I actually went out to various reasons. I went to Lewis to actually try and catch up, and do that kind of thing. And I fell in love with the place. And then that's it. And then much later, when I became a war correspondent in Vietnam for the Financial Times, I made quite a lot of money. And I bought the house here. And it's been a golden thread running through my life,
I think that you summed up. It is a golden thread, isn't it? You kind of get married to the place. And it's funny. My girlfriend, if we're out and about or we go to places and constantly, it doesn't, anywhere else, went to France this year, did a little camper trip, and lovely places, but I just kind of constantly going, it's not as good as Lewis. So
I do always get this feeling that there's a sudden self-satisfaction about certain stratas. We are here because we are this, and we're
yeah. I mean, for me, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just because you can see greenery from every pretty much every vantage point. I mean, I live down on Lamport, so it's very open, very green, and
well, it's wonderful, isn't it? I live opposite a park. I live opposite the paddock.
Yeah.
The back of me, there's a great big green space going up to the castle, and then trees go across the rest of it. And the topographic is wonderful for my wife because she's asthmatic.
Yeah.
And and also there's not just the topography, which is wonderful. It's the creative energy.
Yeah.
The music, the books. The politics, the pubs, yeah.
I mean,
well, actually, they're disappearing, aren't they?
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's something that people I feel like. I mean, it's in this cost of living crisis, it's very difficult for people to go out and spend money on beers and food. But equally, there is a fear, isn't there, that if these services aren't used, they will be lost. I mean, I don't know how that will balance out. I mean, that's you've got, but there's so much life here. And what I really, I think I've. About Lewis, the best thing I think about Lewis, or the reason I really love Lewis is I've never got bored walking around it. There's always something that catches me I've never seen before. All the kids point out, but also just the amount of social clubs. Like there's a social club for everything, and you go to them, and there's a real age range of. I mean, fair enough, there is a sort of 20-year-olds and teenagers are definitely missing from the Lewis mix. But there's you go to a club or something like that, and there's a whole range of ages and backgrounds and whatnot, and it is Lewis is more mixed, in terms of stratas.
But also, you see, I think it's unlike Tunbridge Wells, where there's no university. You've got Blindbourne to the left, you've got Brighton to the right, and you've got the Sussex University in the middle. It's great. But look, we better get back to the issue.
Yes.
The bus stop now. Now, the bus stop has been closed, and I think that a lot of people loads of people are very upset. But isn't it true that the Warrior companies, the developers, they're called Warrior, aren't they?
No, they're called Generator.
Generator, sorry, yeah. And they have not got planning permission, have they?
Well, what's happened is they put in a proposal for planning permission to South Downs National Park. South Downs National Park officers refused it on two main things, which were the housing mix wasn't right, so there wasn't any affordable housing. But I mean, is affordable housing affordable in Lewis? It isn't. It's 80% of the property's value. So it's still, the buildings that they're going to build down there, it's not going to be owned by local people on a regular income. They're still going to be out of that grant.
I'm glad you should say this, because I know about affordable housing. It's a myth, basically. And I'm honorary president of Friends of Wellness Clubs, which is a charity trying to stop inappropriate developments on the scrubs. I'm just not talking about prison. I'm talking about the green space behind it, right? And Sadiq Khan when he came there, I had an interview with him, and I said, well, what you going to do? He said, we're going to have affordable housing. And I said, well, what is that? And he said, oh, 60% of the rent or the what's it? I said, look, this is Harston and East Acton. People can't afford this. You know, they can't afford 600 bloody thousand out of $1 billion.
Exactly.
I said, all the Imperial and the Chinese students are get buying them. You know,
Yeah.
So when people talk about social housing and affordable housing, I always am very, very doubtful.
Yeah.
About what it means.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to argue that. I think that there should be. I think housing should be there. I don't have a problem with social housing. I think it should be more social housing built, and it should stay in the hands of councils and give people.
Well, again, we've got this whole, Mrs. Thatcher and council. There's not enough houses on this island. I'm afraid.
No,
there isn't. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely things are going to have to be built. I mean, with the bus station development though, and what's happened is the Generator Group's proposals got nixed. So they've got their planning proposal got rejected by South Downs National Park. Now that South Downs National Park didn't really indicate that they thought that they didn't really acknowledge that the bus station needed to be there, and now what's happened is Generator Group have retracted their contract. They had a 28-day rolling contract with the bus services, so they took that away. The bus, which forced East Sussex County Council to put in temporary stops all up outside Waitrose and up School Hill.
Quite right, yeah.
And what
Codgers are very needed.
But the problem is that those bus stops are not adequate. You've got businesses complaining. When I went down and made a little film, you've got businesses complaining about people standing outside their shops, blocking blocking people getting in and out of their shops. You've got
Hang on, sorry, which shops?
Well, you've got sort of on School Hill. I see
what you mean.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You've got very narrow pavements, and you've got families having to walk into a busy road. Now, we've got buses coming up there that are pulling into where those are. You've got. I was watching the other day that what was it? Pizza Express were obviously having a delivery of their products, and the articulated lorry had to park in the bus bay. So there's a whole sort of
Hang on a sec. There's only one bus stop up at our School Hill, and that's the doctors.
No, there's a temporary bus station.
Oh, no, you're talking about temporary ones.
Bus
right.
But this is because the
I know. We were there the other night getting drenched.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, and that's another. There's
no
shelter. So when we went, to the bus, the consultation in South Downs National Park to fight it and give a voice to Lewis, the residents, like 700 people wrote into South Downs National Park.
Look, can we just stop for a second? What is South Downs Park? Is that a district council? Is it a county council?
Well, it's a planning. South Downs National Park Authority is a planning authority, which because we're in the
What does authority mean, though?
Well, they give the go ahead on whether
it's a Quango.
Is it Quango?
I don't know. What is it? What is South Downs? Hey.
I would classify it as a Quango, yes. I mean, you're quite right. It's a planning authority, but you because it's a national park, you can't. They are all things on planning.
Yeah.
If they say no, it's very difficult to overturn it.
Yes.
Well, there must be a lot of old plan envelopes going across because this. Sussex University was sacrosanct that they didn't do anything more than what's it, and they've done the whole East Bank.
Yes.
So what is it responsible for, Lewis?
Well, anything that is in the National Park, South Downs National Park, any building that happens inside the South Downs National Park boundary.
Well, does that include the Annex and all that side of the thing, the Downs?
I don't know if that's slightly outside. Well, there's obviously a border.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at a map.
Yeah.
But
So we got the usual trouble with the planners, haven't we? Basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah, because you had to have a facing wall. That cost you 120 quid. Mate, don't mention it. There's a brown envelope.
Well, mate, I can't comment on brown envelopes, but the problem. I mean, the big problem is
we can.
The problem is that there's just no. there isn't a sufficient bus station, and the bus station, even though the Generator Group have said, oh, it hasn't been a bus station since 2006, it has been a important feature of people who use buses. It's a bus terminal, and it has been a bus station because people did use the toilets, and there is a cafe there who open up, and you can go in and get a coffee. So in all, intents and purposes, it is a bus
Well, it's
station.
not a big terminus, let's put it that way.
No,
Yeah.
but when I was talking to people, I spoke to a couple the other day, yesterday, in fact, who were, where were they from? They were from somewhere up north, and they'd come down to walk the national park, and they said that they thought the interconnecting bus services were terrible, because you had to come out and you had to go here, there, and everywhere. And I said, "Oh, did you not know that it was a bus station round the corner? Formerly the bus station."
Yeah. See, I keep saying I believe bus pass is the only good thing about getting old. For example, you could go from John O'Groats to Land's End for nothing. But it would take you 2 years to do it. When we wanted to go from Worthing to Arundel, we went around all of West Sussex.
Yeah, you get to see it.
You do. But I mean, when I've been going down there, I mean, I had a castle recently, but the thing is, I find it very, very good because it's very efficient. The 28 and the 29s are going to Brighton.
They are.
Very good.
I mean, I go into Brighton with the kids a lot. And we don't drive. We get partly because they've made it very hard to park in Brighton, which I agree with.
Well, parking's always been a problem in Brighton,
I mean,
always.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with and also if the bus service isn't really, really. I mean, again, living on Lamport, you think, you can walk over through Wallens and pick up a bus.
It's
15 minutes, or even walk to town, get a coffee, and get the bus from the bus. Go to Zoo Cafe and get a bus, a coffee and some Danish for the kids.
I agree. Yeah.
And if it does rain, you're covered, and you don't have that now. They've taken that. Generator Group have pulled the licenses for buses using it because they want to make it harder for us to have the argument that we need a bus station.
What is that big thing next to it? The big space?
That used to be a bus. Well, I guess a bus depot.
Yeah.
It's no.
Then there's another after that, isn't there?
I don't think so. No. There might be a little courtyard, but I think that's quite the end. But I mean, what we're trying to get, what I want to do is I want people to. Basically, what I want people to do is to log any complaints they have about the temporary bus stops that they're having on our Facebook page, which is Save Lewis Bus Station. And I want to log everything on there, because the next thing is I think we need to do as a community. This isn't sort of like just like me as a green councillor. This is like, I think everybody needs Joe Public, bus users and everybody like that to log complaints. We can go to East Sussex County Council and say, look, these temporary bus stops that you've put in are not working. What are you going to do about it? Because this is now where these are East Sussex County Council are now responsible for this. They need not
the South County Park.
Well, they only deal with planning. They're not dealing with the.
I know about the county council because in New Road where we live.
Yes.
We try to get a thing because the signage is very poor up the top there, and people don't know that it's a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And therefore we have cars racing up and down. And it's full of old people and young families.
Yeah.
They had a cat killed for starters. Where does it end? So we had a lot of big and various Kate Wood and other councillors were involved, and they said, "Oh, this is the county council. They have to deal with that, and they have to deal with pavements." Now, if I come out of my house and walk up towards to get up here, the bloody pavement is like a potholes.
Yeah.
And that is very tricky for old people.
No, I know exactly. That's definitely. I mean, that's again, it's with these temporary bus services. The main people in society who are going to take the brunt of this are people with mobility issues and young families, because they're pushing bugs and stuff like that, or having to wait in the rain, and elderly people who are and I've already had people on the Save Lewis Bus Station Facebook page sort of comment and say, my children get this bus, to get a bus into school into Brighton, and now they're having to wait in the rain, and especially it's quite a nice day out today, great, but when the weather,
I see what you mean. I hadn't thought of it in terms of the shops down the bottom there, Well, that's where the bus stop is now, isn't it?
Well, it's there all the way along, all the way up to Wickles, I think.
What bus stops?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, or just before Wickles. I'm trying to remember what shop. Yeah, but there's loads of temporary bus stops. But I mean, how long is temporary going to be? I mean, if temporary is going to be like 20 years, that
the district council has done this, have they?
No, East Sussex Council. They do all the roads and
pavements
and stuff like that.
They've taken over the planning from the South Council.
No, but there's sort of a negotiation going on between East Sussex County Council and other parties to try and maybe find a new place for a different place to have a bus station. Generator Group put in, what did they do? Basically, I've said these two places, there's two other places that might be suitable for bus stations, but having looked into it, friends of mine who have looked into it have said, no, they're not really adequate, I mean, there's a reason that bus station was built there, because it's an ideal location for a bus station. It's the centre of town. As soon as you move that bus station, there's probably lots of people who get the bus in and then walk to a train station. It's only round Friars Walk. It's not that far, If you've got people coming in from little villages and then having to get
because Leslie, my wife, she's not all stupid. She actually goes to Aldi's and we get the 127.
Yeah,
we have a nice tour around the whole county, but never mind. We get dumped off at Station Road just round the corner from where we live. Yeah, I think it's really quite good to have a knowledge of a bus map.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing with these temporary bus stops is the temporary bus stops don't have any live times. Again, like talking to bus users, there's no like some people were waiting out there when it was chucking it down the other day. Going, I don't know when the bus is going to come. I've got the app. The app isn't really that reliable. I'm looking at there's no screen to look at. It's just a really sorry state of affairs because the bus station could be in use, but Generator Group have retracted the use of it simply because they want to make they're annoyed that their proposal didn't get approved.
Yeah, of course. So, that's the whole point. You see, it's like the thing I was doing with Scrubbers. These developers, they would shrink at nothing.
Yeah,
and what's to get their way.
You look at the websites and you've got all these lovely pictures and all this lovely development and how socially responsible they are and whatnot. But they're quite happy to kind of go, our planning.
Well, look at the Northern Quarter. Look at the Northern Quarter. What's happened there? 3 developers. Now the third one, which is the green one. But the fact is that there are real problems in getting it because of what reasons affordable housing. Social housing, all that kind of thing, and it's still not happening, is it? It's quite weird.
Well, I don't.
Yeah. Well, it's been a big issue for a long time. Let's put it on. But also, there's other thing I can remember way back. Bus passes used to be used for teenagers having a bit of a snog, sitting down in the bus. And also.
I've never used my bus pass for that.
There's still time.
And also for somebody on the road having a quick pee.
Yeah. I wonder if you wouldn't mind me just poking in from the sidelines. It's Keith, by the way, who's not very far away, but I'm not on screen. Yeah. But one of the things that I'm something of an expert in, because I lecture on it from time to time, is corporate social responsibility. Now, it's very difficult in the United Kingdom to know whether it's absolute law or not, because it goes back to the Employment Act of 2006, I think it is. But in many parts of the world, it is law that any company has a CSR policy. In some instances, they have to show how much money out of their budgets that they're spending on corporate expense and so on and so forth, but also that they are showing a willingness to have a director in charge of this to make sure that they are working closely. Now, this lot say on their website that they do all that, but they don't have a director in charge. And in fact, everything they demonstrated here goes contrary to what they say. Now, is anybody bringing them to book for that?
Not yet, but I think this is something that people of Lewis Town need to do. I mean, we've all got internet. We've all got, or a lot of people have got internet. A lot of people have got Facebook profiles. A lot of people have got LinkedIn profiles, and I think this is what we need to do. I think we need to have these conversations online and with Generator Group in front of the people that they deal with. So other people who have got developments going on in other towns where Generator Group might be doing the same sort of thing with pulling licenses or for bus use or whatever and upsetting locals. It's very easy to not reach out and talk to other people where other things are going on and feel like this is just happening to your town. But it might be that Generator Group do this, or lots of developers do these kind of things and have these tactics that are not really well known. And I think we should discuss that. And I think if we're discussing it online, it makes it harder for corporations to kind of wiggle out of things and whitewash things, really. I mean, talking to a councillor, a friend of mine, he was sort of telling me about how that there are, once Zoo are out of the once Zoo Studios are no longer in the bus station, and there's no bus station, no buses going around the bus station, it's all going to get boarded up. So in everybody's mind, as a kind of psychological thing, people would just think, oh, it's a rundown building now, and that's the way these developers work. You run it down, you make it look terrible, and then people are, well, why should we fight for it? But actually, when you've got a thriving little business in there, a proper
two little businesses.
Exactly. And they're local business. Then the money that goes into those businesses isn't shooting off into some sort of shareholder's pocket. It's going into local families' houses, which is sort of supporting our own economy, isn't it? And then you strip all that out, and you've got an empty shell, which is easier to kind of go, well, it's there's no value there, but there is a value there in that empty shell, because think of all the carbon that's been already made. Used to build that bus station, and it functions. It could be done up a little bit.
Well,
we could take some paint down there, and
that's a whole issue about being green. I mean, if you look at Rampion, I mean, the amount of carbon is bloody, the aluminium and the steel and all that kind of thing. 3 billion quid, but then there's an awful lot of emissions as well of it, because.
But I mean, how do we sort of balance these things? But I suppose there's going to be a point in their lifetime. Hopefully, we're getting off topic here, but you're hoping that, I guess, it is a point where once that's But I mean, getting back on topic, that bus station has it's embedded carbon, and to rip it all down, it just build something else. It's just a complete waste of time. How green the proposals?
We're not always kind. In fact, we're often, probably 99%, not kind to politicians on this station. But I have to say that the 850 people objected to this, and the most articulate objection was from Lewis Town Council.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say I wrote that myself. But
that's what Lewis Town Council should be doing, and I think that's great.
I mean, obviously that. I mean, the councillors that I can't speak on behalf of all the councillors, and I can't speak on behalf of Lewis Town Council, because I can only speak as my own as a citizen of Lewis, as a resident of Lewis. But I do feel that generally everybody I know, everyone I've ever spoken to, really likes that bus station and really likes it working as a bus station, and sees the value of it as a bus station. And the words compulsory purchase are being bandied around. And again, this is something that East Sussex County Council could do if they wanted, because the plans that are in the alternatives are really, really bad, inefficient, horribly rain-soaking temporary bus stations. And also the other thing I think that you've got to think about is, once those houses are in, what effect are they going to have on business down the road? I was talking to a friend about this last night. He quite rightly pointed out, you look at the sort of developments that have happened in Brighton around sort of music venues, where developers have come in, built these, and then residents buy them, knowing there's a music venue there, and they start complaining, and that music venue shuts down. And that's happening over England. Now, in a time when our pubs are struggling, the volunteer, those people who buy those houses, right in the bang of centre of
Oh,
town.
Not
They're
there,
going to start shaping how our town centre looks, and they'll start saying, "Well, actually, we don't like living opposite the volunteer.
It's
We
too
don't
noisy.
really too
Yeah.
noisy." So you bought those properties. You know, they're not, and they're going to have the money to have these arguments because they've got the money to buy these houses. You know, they're going to be particular. Well, they're you know,
a lot of money nowadays to buy a house in
well,
Lewis.
yeah, exactly. But these houses that are going to be built by generator, they're not going to be.
Well, the town is already being shaped by people who've, as a very local say, a DFL down from London. I lived in Northern Ireland for a long time, and I was known as a runner-in. I came to Lewis in 1990, so I suppose I'm a runner-in. I'm not DFL, but I'm a runner-in.
Well, I'm still regarded as DFL. I've lived here for longer than everybody. I'm DFL.
But
So
the DFL certainly is shaping the nature of the town.
When I listen, the DFL thing, it's really quite funny because Messer, I don't get on with it, and I always try to outflank him, and I do. And I said, all right, if you fill up with me being a DFL, shall I become a filth? And he said, what's that? Failed in London, try Hastings. No, but seriously. Because it was my second home until recently. And my wife died, and I've given all the properties to my daughters. Yeah, good old me. And I've just got this left, which is fine. I love the place; it's great. But I mean, it's very, very difficult, all this DFL stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a useful term, but I do kind of get the kind of. There's something that it's talking about, which is, there's a change in the landscape of Lewis, where you've got people who've lived here.
Well, your colleague Stephen Catlin says that really much of this goes back to when the university was first built, because professors came down and bought very cheap housing, which had been abandoned from the industries that were closing down for their sons and their daughters, and they've hung on to them.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not a lot of people come down here during the pandemic because the schools are very good. That's a really important point.
Also, that is,
and also the idea is it's only an hour from London. Mind you, Southern Rail did put the mockers on that for a while.
But I think there's a lot of people trying to escape London because since the pandemic,
yes, quite simple. And this is convenient. Yeah. But when they find out the cost of the flipping places, it's a different story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Charlie Wycherley, blimey, he's rich as Christ, isn't he? He said there was a time, I was talking to him recently, you couldn't give away a house in Neville.
Really?
He said
I remember talking to my old landlady about that, and she was saying that the Neville was a rough place to live. Like, really? I can't imagine that. About 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy times. But I mean, if there is an influx of people, I mean, provided they're not trying to bend Lewis into a shape that doesn't.
They do bring money into the town, don't they? They do just give money to the town.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue there's lots of shops on the high street that only cater for one type of people, but they keep the light, they keep the shops open, they keep the high street alive, and they bring, those people come into the high street and then they go to other places and they do a shop, and they walk around, they have a coffee, and they keep this place.
Yeah, but look what the investment in the Cliff High Street has been, the precinct. It's terrific. It's like the old town in Hastings, all these artisan shops.
That's lovely.
That's wonderful, isn't it? Yeah.
It keeps it thriving. It brings other people in, and
So where are we now? Then we're doing this petition, and the next step is you're going to try to.
Well, we're going to try and sort of
bludgeon them a bit.
Maybe not bludgeon them, but I'm trying to collect lots of evidence about why the temporary bus stops aren't working. So any photos, any written statements, video, anything, people being caught in the rain, people having to step into the road, push chairs in the road, all of that sort of stuff.
Well, this is quite right. You must emphasise that come the cold winter, we're going to be standing on the pavement, nowhere to sit, and rain and cold.
Yeah, and I think, we need to document this, and then this needs to be taken to the East Sussex County Council as an argument to say, what are you going to do about this? Yeah. And while we're doing that, I'm also going to try and get that's kind of, and there also needs to be an online thing where we are sort of, how should I put it? having a conversation with Generator Group about the use of the bus station and getting that put back into use as a bus station, regardless of how it all plays out, until that very moment that it isn't a bus station anymore, or is a bus station, or gets whatever. That the Generator Group are punishing the bus users and businesses and residents of Lewes because they haven't got a.
Are they a local business?
No, they're based in Essex.
Are they? Oh, yeah. Well, you see, that's the whole bloody problem, isn't it? Up there. But, I mean, these developers, well.
I wonder if you could ask another question, because as I understand it, the planning application says that the use as a bus station cannot cease until the developer has found another suitable site.
Yes.
Well, they haven't.
They haven't. No,
So
they haven't.
How can they shut it down?
Well, this is, this is
about
an argument that East Sussex County Council need to have.
Would they go for the
South
car
Dales
park
National
behind
Park, aren't they?
Premier Inn? I suppose that could be done, could it?
Well, they've looked at it, but it's not suitable. There's big problems with that. I'm not fully aware of all the problems and the reasons why that the allocated sites that they're trying to allocate, that the suggested sites don't work. I'm not quite sure. I'm not completely that. You'd have to talk to one of my peers about that.
Yeah, well, you can't think of anyway, can you? Yeah.
But there's a reason. That's because the ideal place for a bus station is the bus station.
Yes.
It's where it is.
Where it is.
Exactly.
They didn't pull it
And the
out of the
system
hat.
worked.
Yeah, they didn't throw a dart a map and go, let's put it there. They put it there because it's part of and then they built roads around it.
Just to crown it, it is like I was saying a thing about a certain self-pleasing pleasance of a middle class in it.
Yeah.
You've got the middle class supermarket opposite.
Well, this is it. I mean, that's one of the.
You don't have to walk down to Owley's.
That's the biggest sell, isn't it, of those properties there?
Next
I'll
thing
just go across the road to get my expensive cheeses and wines. You don't have to. Yeah.
I can get a Financial Times there. Can't get it in Tesco's, No, actually, do you know John May? He's a well-known campaigner. Yeah.
Yes, I think.
Well, he lives opposite me. Great friend, great campaigner, done amazing things here. And I get the Financial Times free because I'm in London, but I don't really do online. And I say I buy it. I say I'll give it.
Well, cut off in mid-sentence there. I'm sorry about that. But perhaps the two of you would like to sort of do a little 2 or 3 minute wrap of what you've talked about.
Yeah, well, we've obviously, the idea that the bus station in the middle of town is being closed down for redevelopment has upset an awful lot of people, quite rightly, because it's very difficult to envisage where there will be another car park. And secondly, it doesn't need developers. For example, look at Premier Inn. They were going to have shops. Still, 3 years on, the shop places haven't been filled.
Yeah.
Now, you've got the same problem, I think, with the North. There's going to be all these kind of houses, they say. And that's going to end into difficult communications things, friction with shops and the volunteer and so forth and so on. And there are loads of reasons not to allow it to be shut down. I think, and what the greatest one of all is, as you said, is, sort of temporary bus stops on School Hill where there's no shelter, where it's difficult to get the prams round and get the cars parked, so forth and so on. So it's just a crazy idea that it shouldn't be allowed to go ahead.
Exactly, and I think following on from that, it's up to the people of Lewes to really come together, I think, and document all the things that annoy them about having these temporary bus stops there, and why the bus station should be, should come back into use. So we've got a website, a Facebook page, say facebook.com/Save Lewes Bus Station, and you can post anything on there that you like, videos, photographs, anything like that. There's also, you can email me on savelewesbusstation@gmail.com, and again, anything, just written statements, anything like that. And I'm going to be doing some videos and putting stuff up, and then I think we're going to try and take this to East Sussex County Council and try and engage with them to get some sort of resolution on this.
Good, excellent. You're doing a very good job, I think.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So what do you do for the day job, if you don't mind me asking?
That's all right. I edit animatics for children's television.
Well, animation?
So, I don't animate. I cut the storyboards, so, and then that goes off, and the magic happens with some other very talented.
Did you do a course in animation?
No. I did filmmaking and TV studies up in Liverpool a long time ago.
I never did a course in journalism. They didn't exist when I was a boy.
You just find yourself in something, don't you?
Well, journalism do, yeah. I mean, it's just like that. It's just something that happens to you, and you go along, and I didn't realise I got ADHD, but I talked my way into a job at a Financial Times. Well, I didn't get a very good degree in Sussex, and I was in London working on a building site, and I had a sunny day, and I was sitting there. There's a copy of the Daily Telegraph, and I saw an ad in it saying, "Researcher wanted for Financial Times Library, must be a graduate, editorial prospects." And I actually got an interview, kept on talking, and I got a job. It's the story of my life. My memoirs, which I'm writing at the moment, it's called A Life of Flukes. You see this one? And the other good thing about the Financial Times, it has the most wonderful pensions.
Okay, gentlemen.
I must mention that in front of you.
Getting the plug-in for the Financial Times for you.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming. It's been mostly enlightening. We'll stay with it, won't we, Keith?
Indeed,
we should have got quite a lot of it. We're getting quite a lot of reviews now.
Good.
Yes.
Particularly because of the energy stuff,
We're somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 people watching, and we're growing. We're really starting to grow.
Can I just add one last thing I forgot to say, actually, about the whole bus station? It isn't just about Lewes, residents of Lewes. It's about people who use the buses. So it's people coming in from Brighton and coming in from all the other towns in Sussex and the South Downs National Park. And lots of people use these threads to get around, and and having it all discombobulated along the street, it's just a nightmare. So it isn't just affecting people in Lewes; it's affecting a great and people. Some of your viewers might not be based in Lewes, but they might use the bus services. Yeah. They might like to get involved as well. So please.
Well, Brighton, a lot of Brighton footballers coming here when Brighton's playing. God, you bloody well stay in those days.
Okay, well, thank you both very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks a lot.
And do you record this? Is this
Here I am back again. Yeah, you can get this on YouTube or Facebook. It is distributed at the end, but it's going out live. You just went out live on Facebook. Can I tell you that in the meantime, while that discussion was taking place, Kevin made sure that my weekly job of testing the beer at the White Hart. He came and put it in front of me, and I was polite enough not to drink it while we were chatting about the bus station. And here we go. Not a bad bit of beer, not a bad bit of lager. So if you're coming into the hotel today, the bar is in good shape. In good shape. All right. Well, that was a good discussion about the bus station, which is a very controversial topic. And anybody who wants to drop by and make a comment can indeed do so. I know that this is a strange concept for television, but it is not new. It's based on an old BBC program called Pebble Mill at One, which was actually initiated by one of my mentors, a guy called Phil Sidey, who is the executive producer of BBC in Edgbaston in Birmingham, and he actually used a lot of the waste atrium space to start that program, Pebble Mill at One, in which people would wander through and chat to the guests and hosts. So when you hear things going on, cheers. When you hear things going on in the background or see people walking through, then it's deliberate. We're not making a mistake. So there we are. Well done, Stuart. I think that was a very interesting discussion, and we know a little bit more about what's going on in the background. I'm not sure that I'm terribly happy about the whole situation. It isn't whether it is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but we must make sure. And it seems to me that perhaps that the politicians could do a bit more, the planners could be a bit tougher, but most certainly under the corporate social responsibility legislation, that the developer could actually be a little bit more communicative, a little bit more willing to debate the issue in public than they are at the moment, because they say on their website that that's what they do, and they list all the happy people that they've got. They don't actually list anybody who is not at all dissatisfied with what they've done. And I think that that's important, that we should actually get that right. So there we are. That's where we stand with that. And let's now see if we can perhaps ease off a little from the important things. We've got 20 minutes left. It's 10:40 on the 27th of September, 2022. It is going to hit a chilly 16 outside today, with a light breeze and some scattered sunshine. No rain, you'll be pleased to know. But we actually do look as if we're going to have a week ahead without too much rain. So we'll see what we've got going. One of the things we played yesterday, and we'll play again today because people like it, is Ghost Train. So let's go to one of the great rail disasters of this area in the mid-1800s.
Many people find commuting by train tiresome. But one of the pleasures of taking a train to London is that it passes through some of the most beautiful countryside in the UK. None more so than the view of the countryside as the line approaches Clayton Tunnel, just north of Brighton. The tunnel is the longest on the line, at 1.25 miles, running under the South Downs. It's unusual because the entrance is not the usual railway brick. It is instead designed to look like the gateway to a castle. On top is a cottage built for the railway's lightkeeper in 1849. The tunnel itself was opened in 1841 and the cottage added later. Idyllic. But after 1861 it became a nightmare, or at least for those who believe in ghostly goings-on. In August of that year, a night train left Brighton, travelling north to London. Partway through the tunnel, it stopped at what it thought was a danger signal from the lightman. The engine driver was correct. The railway official had indeed given a danger signal, but the train had rushed past him before pulling up. Thinking the train had cleared the tunnel, the unfortunate lightman gave the all clear to a following train. And it slammed into the back of the first train in the dark, killing 23 and injuring 176 more. It was the worst ever accident on the line. And people walking on the downs over the underground passage have reported hearing the screams of the passengers as the trains piled into each other. The line is now also a direct line from Lewes. I've travelled through that tunnel 1,000 times. I've never heard a scream other than the screech of the wheels and brakes. But I've never walked over the downs at that point either. And I turned down an invitation to stay in the cottage overnight. In fact, I get tense each time I go into the tunnel, knowing what had happened more than 165 years ago. But my fellow passengers carry on reading their newspapers, obviously oblivious to both the tragedy and the ghosts. I could sometimes scream at them. The ghosts of Clayton Tunnel. Eerie. Bloody eerie.
No, it's not me laughing. Now, I am not 100% sure, but it may be that where we actually parted company, we're talking about the past of Lewis. We may just be able to pick up. We will give it the old college try, but if not, then we will return to have a chat to you. Let's have a go.
In the community of Lewis.
But there's nothing like a bit of competition to stir the blood of a true Lewisian. And sometime in the 15th century, a big fight is recorded between the bailiffs of the town and the prior's men in a local tavern. One of the 63 pubs that once existed in the town, no doubt. The town was walled in 1275. And a fat lot of good it did. When de Montfort's troops attacked, they swept into the town with no trouble. That then caused the town's nobility to strengthen them. They remained intact from then for some centuries, when they came down to the hammers of developers as the town grew. Entry to the town was by 3 gates, north, south and west, each now remembered through the name and a few remaining stones where the wall had been. The walls may have gone, and most of the priory. But many buildings in Lewis have stood the test of time and the vandalism of kings. This church was originally a hospice attached to the priory, and this was an early hospital from the same period. And Cromwell wasn't daft enough to pull down a Tudor manor which Henry had given as part of a divorce settlement. He kept Anne of Cleves' house for himself. Within the town walls, this building has more than stood the test of time. St Michael's was the original castle church, built about 1240. It's the parish church of the town, and holds both church services and musical concerts today. There is a helmet and depiction of Sir Patrick Hamilton on one of the walls. Lewis is close to the coast and open to attack from French marauders, who regularly attacked the coast. On one occasion in the 16th century, ships sailed up the Ouse far enough for them to be spotted from inside the town. This noble knight depicted here was renowned for his courage in seeing them off. Later, revolutionary Tom Paine was married here before decamping to the Americas. And its spiral tower is one of the few surviving in the UK. Before we disappear into the folds of one of Lewis's hostelries, there's one more legacy from Henry's break with Rome. His successor Queen Mary wanted to restore the Roman Church to England, and she was very vicious towards dissenters. 17 people who refused to give up their beliefs or had read the Bible in English were seized and thrown into a dungeon in Lewis. In November 1545, they were marched up these stairs out to a stake and put in tar barrels. Burning to death in that way was a very horrible way to die. One more chapter in the bloody Lewis High Street saga. This act of savagery has not been lost in the mists of time, however. The 17 martyrs, as they're known, are remembered on November the 5th in the biggest bonfire ceremonies of any Guy Fawkes night in the world. 7 bonfire societies stage a joint procession through the town, torches blazing, effigies of Guy Fawkes and of so-called enemies of bonfire, those who have behaved badly in the year, pulled on carriages stuffed with fireworks. It's a colourful and impressive procession, but with an underlying commemoration of the 17 dead. The parade stopped at the town's war memorial for the laying of wreaths to the fallen. Prayers are said. Banners extolling the names of the martyrs are held high. And rousers, or better known to us as bangers, are freely thrown around as the people march. It's a colourful parade.
And I feel underdressed, with just one of my hats to show off. But bonfire, as it's known locally, is not the only memory of Bloody Lewis.
It suffered a far worse fate from a hidden foe. The Black Death.
On Bloody Red to Deadly Black. Next episode, how rats destroyed a major port and brought more historical carnage to Lewis. Until then, a bloody goodbye. Poor old Lewis. I need a drink. Well, from going from drink to one drink to the other, my job once a week is to make sure that the lager is fit for purpose, that it is good in the bar at the White Hart Hotel. Kevin, who comes in to sort everything out, always makes sure that I am now the chief tester, and I have to tell you, it passes muster, indeed. So from one beer drinking episode to another. Just looking to the inside pages of newspapers is the Partygate probe fiasco is the top lawyer has said that the probe into Downing Street was fundamentally flawed. And some MPs have said, no. But this was a judgment made by, as they put it, one of the finest legal minds in the country. Artificial intelligence is being used to create the voice of Darth Vader after James Earl Jones signed over his rights to the voice of this Star Wars character. It's man versus chimp. 1 in 10 think they can win a fight. And RAF admits mistakes over its woke drive for diversity quotas. Yeah, well, thank goodness somebody's making mistakes. It is oh dear. Here it comes again. Proportional representation, the worst possible form of democracy. And who's back at it? Sir Keir Starmer. Why don't they leave it alone? What it does is it makes bad government, because you have to include all sorts of little parties who haven't a clue, and wheeling and dealing goes on, and it is creates a ripe environment for a lot of unfairness, in fact, corruption in politics. Right. Now, as an asteroid in NASA's sights, population system produces a threat by electrically charged atoms. Last night, a probe launched by space boffins hit an asteroid 7 million miles from Earth in an attempt to see if we can change the path of giant rocks that could destroy our planet. So can NASA's game of cosmic billions at 15,000 miles per hour save the Earth's future, just in case a rock slams into us and does us all in? let's see. Lobster King's widow loses a court fight with her daughter over a £900,000 pot. What's that about? The widow of a millionaire Lobster King is feeling the pinch after losing a bitter court fight with her daughter over her late husband's fortune, with the judge declaring she was already rich enough. Entrepreneur Chris Ranos took his own life, aged 72, in 2020, after struggling to cope with family issues, including the breakdown of his marriage to his wife of 48 years. He had made his fortune setting up a seafood supply business in the 1970s, going on to become a major importer of Canadian lobsters. 3 coffees a day gives you a shot at living longer. Oh, well, there you are. And parents urged to book MMR jabs after COVID slump. Fraud cases up by a quarter in just 2 years. Then we get on to the features, which normally are pretty fatty. Oh dear. Some of these domestic issues which managed to hit the news. Well, there you are. That's a little pot shot at those things which are in the inside of the paper. Nothing there, I don't think, to shake the foundations of the country the way it's been shaken at the moment by the plummet of the pound. And that's what the papers were all about this morning, is how the pound has plummeted, how the crowds and the wolfpacks have gathered to condemn the government policy on finance and how to resurrect the economy. It is difficult yet to say which way it's going to go, but the doomsayers always like to doomsay. And the pound has dropped sharply against the dollar and other currencies, but that did rally yesterday, and there is no reason why, if we keep up our spirits, that it shouldn't actually recover again. But only time will tell. Of course, the thing in the markets is that people talk up markets or talk down markets. The market is now fighting a talking down period in which the doomsayers are saying it won't recover. So it's got an extra burden to fight. Who knows? If somebody started to talk it up, which actually 2 newspapers have today, they've said, hey, come on, this is a new tack. It's bound to scare financial markets, money people. But then again, see, the money people only go on how much money they're going to make. They have no feel for whether it's good for the country, bad for the country, or whatever. And so if it starts to go up again, then people will buy into the pound, and we'll see a nice little topping off ceremony, as it were. So I hope that we're okay for our Wi-Fi, because there's a little circle thing there that suggested that perhaps it wasn't all that it might be. So. Yeah. Once again, I hit the wrong button and I got the ending, but it is 1 minute. It's 2 minutes past 11 now. Time for us to go. Hope you enjoyed this morning, whether you dipped in for 30 seconds or whether you stayed with us for 15 minutes or so. We're always delighted to have you with us, and I hope that as we move forward, so we will gather more of you around, and we're able to take a look at both local and international issues as they affect us here in this part of the world. All right. Tomorrow is Stuart has been on today with both Energy Matters and with conversations with Stuart Dolby, and he's away tomorrow, and so we'll actually not see Stuart again until I think next week, and tomorrow Max will be on. And I will probably join him as a supporting act. God help him. All right, we'll actually call it a day and hope that we actually see you tomorrow and for the rest of the week. Toodle pip. Yeah, super.